And I've given 4 general categories here. They're the stubbornly independent, steadfast denier, overly controlling, or cognitively challenged. Right? I mean, being very broad in some ways, but help us identify that every old person or elderly person would be different, and how they react to the conversations, how they react to the changing circumstances will be different. So one of the things the FYI did, for example, in putting together this toolkit, was we had a listening session where we went to communities, right, and we gathered people who were 60 plus years old. So anybody who was less than 60 was not allowed in the room. And we sat down and we interviewed the elders who were in the room. And then the next day we had the interview, the same thing with the folks who were looking after the sandwich generation. So no elders allowed, no kids allowed, only those who are actually looking after the elders. And we asked each group what their challenges were from their perspective, what they thought were the important things. And you see these type of categorization of elders comes out clearly. The stubbornly independent is like, listen, I've been on my own for 30 years. I don't need anybody to help me. I'm totally fine. And you try to talk to the uncle, you know, like you're 65 years old, you're mashallah, awesome health. But, you know, in 10, 15 years, you want to start planning. You want to start thinking, you know, changes are going to happen. Your body's going to slow. Nope. I've been good for 30 years. I'll be good for another 30 years. So understanding that that mindset is there requires a different way of speaking to them. And then there are those who are like, I'm not old. Go ask dad, like, listen, gym's full of old people. Not for me, right? I'm not them. Even though you look in the mirror, it's like, what's the difference, right? They're not there yet. And then there are those who are like, all right, we need changes, but you don't dictate to me what the changes are. I am going to be in control. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do things. And you got to be able to navigate that. And then, of course, you also have, as some of our elders are getting older, different issues arise, and we'll talk about this in a little bit detail, but if they're cognitively challenged, if they have dementia, if they have Alzheimer's, if they have different issues may come up, they may not be able to express, they may not be able to understand, they may forget often, and so you have to be able to navigate all that. So the point here is to recognize that your mother might be different than your father-in-law might be different than your mother-in-law, each person would be different, and you need to be able to customize your process for each one of them. So how do we recognize that their needs are changing? Right? There's a whole laundry list on the website, but you go visit them if they're not living with you, and you find that, you know, the yard work they used to be pretty meticulous about yard work, and now yard work's piling up for 2-3 months at a time, and they're like, yeah, I'll get to it. Should be some warning sign, you know what? Things are changing here. Their hair, their clothing is not the best way that it used to look like. There are changes in their mood swings a lot more. There's, you know, all right, there's some changes happening within their body. It should give you a trigger there. From a financial side, their checks are bouncing. And you recognize, you see mail is piling up from the bank, from other places. You're like, you know, why aren't they opening this? A lot of these are just warning signs to let us know that their needs are changing and people need to get involved here, right? What are some of those common challenges that actually occur with them? So first of all, from a physical perspective, well, the body is aging. Their ability to do different things is decreasing. Even if their mind may not admit, right? Mentally, you're like, you know what? I'm still strong. Because, I mean, think about us. Forget about anybody else. I still think of myself the way I thought of myself when I was 25 years old. I'm not 25 anymore. But in my mind, I haven't aged that much. And I look at somebody else, they're like, oh, that's a kid. That person's old, because everything is relative to me. Our mind is very slow to catch up because we think where we were a long time ago, but the body is aging. And as a result of that, there might be loss of mobility. You're not able to drive as often, or you know what, in the evening when it gets dark, it's more challenging. And that might manifest itself in different ways. Like, you know, my dad, for example, you know, the masjid for him is life. Like, he has to be close to the masjid. He has to be at the masjid all the time. And not being able to go to the masjid for Maghrib or Isha, you know, Dhuhr Asr is easy during the day. But I live in Detroit, so you get snow, it's dark outside in winter, and it's tough to drive. You can see he's in a bad mood that day because, you know what, I wasn't able to go to the masjid. And that has a big impact on him. And it carries over into so many other things. So this loss of mobility has an impact. And then cognitive, their ability to understand and process information it's going to slow down. And please understand, as Dua mentioned, we're treating them with utmost respect. You're not trying to treat them as children, because they are not children. They are our parents. And so with utmost respect, but understanding that, you know what, those complicated phrases that we might be using these long sentences, that by the time you get to the end of the sentence, they forgot what was said at the beginning. Those changes are happening. And so you need to adjust using shorter, simpler sentences to make sure they're able to follow along what is being said. Aside from the physical, there's the psychological, the social, emotional changes that are coming place, right? So with general memory loss, as we get older, I'm starting to forget a lot more, forget about my parents. But, you know, it's not just simple memory loss with age, but it could actually be dementia, where they're actually accelerating in that process. Alzheimer's or Lewy body disease, where it's a combination of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. These different things, they manifest themselves. And so we want to catch these as early as we can. Like if they actually are, you want to pick up on those warning signs. Because alhamdulillah, with the advancement of medicine and so forth, so many of these things, like when you talk about Alzheimer's or Lewy body, they cannot be cured, or Parkinson's, like they cannot be cured. We don't have a cure for them yet. Allah Alam, perhaps one day we'll have them. But we can slow them down, right? We can slow them down, especially if you catch them early enough. Now, they may not recognize this. They may not realize that they have some of these things. But when you pay attention to their behavior and the changes that are taking place, and you raise those questions with the physicians, like, I noticed this was happening, I noticed that was happening, is there anything to it? If we're not physicians, we may not know much of these, but by raising this to the physician's going to join the dots and like, 1, 2, 3, 4 things. All right, I think we need to do a couple of these tests and a couple of those tests. Like, all right, we need to start you on some of these medications just to slow things down. Right? So, but it's up to us to pick up on those signs. As they get older, also recognize their peer group is decreasing. People are slowly passing away. And every day when they hear of such and such passed away, it's not just, may Allah bless them and give them Jannah. Yes, that's there. It's a reminder, I'm very close to this. I'm next in line. So that the impact on them is very different than perhaps the impact is on us. Increasingly, that causes loneliness. And that might actually lead to depression, like clinical depression. You feel very down. And so we need to be cognizant of that and recognize and see where they're going and be able to take appropriate action. Even if it doesn't lead to depression or loneliness, there might be more anxiety of, how am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why are you constantly around me? They become anxious at times. And being able to navigate that and knowing what best be. So this is a list. I use this type of list to help me understand how I should behave around the elders, so I can navigate in the best possible fashion. There are a whole other list of issues as our elders are getting on in age. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I put it up there just so we start thinking about them. Legal issues. Are the wills in order? If there are no wills in order, things will happen. We should all have wills. We should all have Islamic wills if we can. Disclaimer, I have a friend of mine and myself, we set up this company that does Islamic wills, halaldocuments.com. So, but it's really almost a non-profit. So, but the idea is we went with the shuyukh and said, people are not making wills because it's too expensive. The lawyers charge you $400 an hour and stuff. And you know what? If we do all this work, we can have a will for a person in about 100 and some odd dollars. You can do a will plus this, all in like $300, 6 documents altogether, halal documents. For us, we should have this. But more importantly, for our elders, are there wills? Are there other legal documents? If they own property, if they own vehicles, are you in a right place to make sure that all the documents are in place, that you can transfer them appropriately? Healthcare. Is somebody looking after them, making sure that they have the right healthcare, that their health insurance, if they're using Medicare or Medicaid, whatever the case might be, it's in right place. Their housing needs, their financial needs. Go through this list again from the website, but these are things we should have in mind. It's not just they're getting older and I had to create different types of food, but all these other things that we may think about, we should start thinking more aggressively. So, working with what Dua was saying, that we need to be very tactful in how we offer our help. Look at different alternatives. Each person is different. what works best for them might be different than what works for you. You're not doing it for your comfort, right? It's for their benefit. So what works for them? And watch for these symptoms early. Very importantly, don't take over their life. I'm going to speed up a little bit because my time's running short. So start early. I'll give an example of my parents. So I grew up in Toronto in Canada. My parents were there. One of my brothers is still there. I'd moved down to Detroit. And then we recognized, parents are getting on in age. My dad now is about 85 years old. My mom's almost 80, alhamdulillah. And we said, with our parents, you cannot be living alone anymore. Even though my brother's 5 minutes away, 5 minutes is too far. If you, God forbid, slipped and fell, 5 minutes is an eternity away. Who's going to know? You're home alone. So you need to move in with one of us. You pick. And so, but that conversation took about 5 years. 5 years of convincing the parents that you need to move. There's this issue and that issue and resistance on this. And you slowly work through them and you break down. But after 5 years, they were convinced that yes, they need to move. And alhamdulillah, they moved. And so they're living with us. We're all living together. So it takes time, be patient. And you got to probe deeply. What are the issues? What do they need? And when they moved in with us, said, all right, new doctors here versus the doctors they had. Every time you ask them, the doctor said they're good health, etc. All right, well, I'm taking their word at it, right? Now they moved in, I'm actually driving them to the doctors, and doctor's like, hey, we need to do a bunch of tests here. And then we tell them, well, we noticed this in this behavior, we noticed that in behavior. We need to do more tests on this. And the doctor discovered a bunch of different things that I guess over there had not been diagnosed. And it would not have been diagnosed unless somebody else was with them, noticing from the outside, hey, your behavior is changing. The way you walk is different than it was before. Because when you're sitting down in the doctor's office, he's not necessarily noticing this. But you notice, hey, the way you're walking is different. Okay, is that an issue? And so on and so forth. So understand all of this and work through. Take it slow. At the end of the day, understand that you have limits. You will not be able to do everything. Do what you can. And do it in the best respectful fashion, but don't punish yourself too much on that. Take it slow and accept your limits, inshallah. Just yesterday, day before yesterday, I got this message. An aunt passed away, and now her brothers and her husband, so this is an elderly person, they're having a conflict as to who pays for the funeral expenses. Because the funerals are expensive. The bill from the masjid, I don't know where they live, but it was $8,000. Who's going to pay for this? You need to plan forward. Sibling conflicts is one of the very common things that you see happening as the elders age. And particularly when the siblings are not physically close together. So if siblings one city, another city, a third city, the parents are living with one of the brothers and sisters, the parents are getting older, the one person is looking after them, so they're under all of this pressure looking after this, that, and the other. The other siblings may not be aware of the development that's taking place in their parents. They may be thinking of parents 10, 20 years ago, and they don't recognize the changes that have taken place. If something happens, parents are hospitalized, they're on life support. You see these fights happen all the time. The sibling from California is going to fly to New York. It's like, all right, you know what? We're going to keep them life support. We're going to do everything we can. The one who's been looking after them says, the doctor said, listen, we did everything we can. We need to pull the plug. And the other sibling's like, no way. But it's not about the parent anymore. It's the sibling feeling guilty that I wasn't there for my parents all this time. I'm not going to let them just pull the plug. I'm going to go to the end. Even though it's the most ridiculous decision possible, the doctors, everybody's saying don't do it. It's the end, it's come. But it becomes about you now. And now the siblings start fighting. So start thinking through these things. As the families gather, again, it's not a one-time conversation. You're going to have this over a period of time. The siblings or the family members need to come together and understand, what is our plan of action? Who's going to look after what? Who is going to do what? And when things do happen, how do we communicate with each other? So we have I'm sure everybody has a family WhatsApp group. Okay, are we regularly updating each other on the progression? Hey, we went to the doctors today. The doctor said this. We went to the doctor. We had these test results. These came back. So everybody's on the same page. Even though they're physically further away, step by step, they're like, okay, you know what? Parents are getting older. Hey, MRI results came back. They said this. You know what? They had an X-ray. Oh, broken bone. And you know what? They're not young anymore. The bone's going to take like 6 months to heal. Oh boy. Okay. So they're with you every step of the way rather than being shocked at the end. Have roles and responsibilities. Split that up. Have a plan of action. If you can, hold regular family meetings to keep everybody up to date. Like I said, in my case, my siblings are all over the place, so WhatsApp is the way we keep each other up to date. One of my siblings is close to me, so we try to divide the labor up as much as you can. One person's going to take them to the dental appointments. One person takes them, my mother to her primary doctor's appointment. One person takes my dad to his appointments. 3 different people taking 3 different places. You divide up the labor. Insurance, sometimes the insurance mess up. You have to call them. Well, the sibling who's in the other city, it's a phone call. You can make the phone calls. Divide up the labor so everybody feels involved. And talk to the children, especially as the elders are getting on, and if there are physical issues, if there are different illnesses that are coming place, the kids may feel resentment at times because the grandparents are taking up all this time from my parents. I don't get time with my parents as much. So they need to recognize why that's happening and how that's happening, but also you to be balanced, that you're spending appropriate amount of time with the children so that they don't feel totally left out, inshallah. One of the things that we did recently was last month we mailed out this poster to about 500 different masajid around the country. And we want to make sure that your masjid has received it. If you want to ask the folks at the back in the at the FYI booth, who in your masjid has received it, make sure they put it up. It talks about the mental health needs and the challenges that Muslims are facing so that we're able to utilize the resources that are available. So we want to make sure that you have that poster available. If you have not received it, if your masjid doesn't have it, or we didn't have your masjid on the list, please stop by and we can help you get some of the stuff. There's a lot of different types of material. We have books, we have reports, we have videos, we have infographics. A lot of that you can just get off our website. But one thing that I really want to introduce you, if you don't already know, is about our email list. Monday to Friday, we send out 1 email per day because everybody's busy. We don't have time to read 1,000 different emails. An email of 3 to 5 minutes worth of reading. Every day, a little bit of information on a different topic. Looking after the elders, parenting, marriage, mental health. Every day is a different topic. So you can go to our website and sign up to join our email list, get that information, or you can text your name and email to the phone number that's on the screen, and inshallah we'll add you to the email list as well. Hospice care or old age, putting them in senior citizens facilities. And from emotional perspective, Islamic perspective, is that necessarily the best thing to do, right? So understand there's not going to be one general answer. And even hospice care, there are different types of hospice care. There's cares that you can avail where a caregiver is going to come to your house and provide services to your parents. That could be a really great solution, right? Where the parents are at home, the elders are at home, and the caregivers from the insurance company or whatever the company might be, they come to the house, once a day to help bathe them, to look after certain needs or whatever the case might be. That can be great. Depending on your personal situation, if you are really not able to look after your parents, then you may want to consider a facility where they need a lot more care. But that is something, at least from Islamic perspective, my understanding, maybe Sheikh Rida can correct me, I really would not want to go that route. I mean, I wouldn't want to be living by myself with a lot of strangers who are looking after me. I would rather be at home with my kids and my grandkids, and I'm sure my parents would want to be at home with the kids and grandkids. But it is a very challenging situation. Now, there might be some circumstances where, it is very difficult. If you are a single parent and your parent that you're looking after has some severe dementia, they really don't understand, like 5 minutes into the conversation, they forgot, they don't remember who you are. Add a bunch of different other things. It becomes very tasking, very challenging. At that point, you may want to seriously consider, there's a facility I need to be able to use. Don't torture yourself unnecessarily. So depending on the circumstances, depending on the situation, you have to look at these different options that are available.